Welcome to V is for Victory, a podcast about how small businesses overcome big battles. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a boutique marketing firm in the Chicagoland area where I'm also a part-time professor of an advertising course. Join me as I talk with entrepreneurs about the challenges they faced as well as their strategies for success. Welcome, everybody, to episode 26 of V is for Victory. I have an exciting guest. His name is E.A. Csolkovits. He was born in Chicago. By the age of 16, he started his first job, which was in sales, selling janitorial services to business owners. By 19, he had met and started being mentored by millionaire businessman Sam Robbins. By 21, he'd become the chairman of House of Holland Jewelers. In 1980, and for the next 45 years, EA started and grew a nutritional food company, which stemmed from his lifelong battle with diabetes. He's also hosted a radio talk show, consulted for high-end clients receiving as much as $1,500 an hour for his advice. He's conducted training for C-suite executives. He's been named Who's Who in public speaking, authored newsletters that have been distributed in over 20 countries. By the age of 23, EA was already a millionaire. He owns a 1,000-acre wildlife sanctuary, holds a commercial pilot's license, is a second-degree black belt in martial arts, is a certified scuba diver, and an author of several books, including The Giver's Mindset, The Giver's Lifestyle, and The Giver's Lifelong Learning for the Give to be Great. EA, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Jill, thank you so much for having me on your great podcast. And as I was listening to you say all those things, at the end I still thought, well, my bio's still not as long as my last name. So I got to get to work.
Yeah, just a couple more pages of accolades, please. Oh, my goodness. What stands out to you the most in your career? Out of all those things that I read, which I think there's even more, but what stands out to you the most?
Well, I have to say it was my relationship with my business mentor, and how I met him and how that came about in my life, which is really sort of a extraordinary lesson for others on, be careful of what we think, because our lives really do become those self-fulfilling prophecies, and most people don't realize the amount of their life that they give away to others and just let them sort of control whatever they want to think and whatever they want to do. So I would say definitely my relationship, how I met my business mentor and my relationship with him and the impact he had on my life, that really changed the trajectory of the whole rest of my life, including even of this day.
And you were quite young when you met him. You were 19. So tell me what that was like. Like at 19, you meet someone who's a millionaire. I feel like I've talked to many entrepreneurs who they specifically remember the first time they were in a room with a millionaire or a billionaire or, both of those milestones. So just tell me about what it was like to meet your mentor at such a young age. And did you realize the opportunity immediately when it was in front of you that, hey, here's someone I could learn from and who might be able to change my life? Or what was that like?
Well, I appreciate that. And actually, I'd love to be able to share the story with you and your listeners on not only what set the stage for me meeting my mentor, but actually how I met him, and then, of course, how I felt when I met him, if I may. I should warn your listeners up front. I never say anything in 10 minutes. If I can say it in 20. And when you said something like we're going to try to keep the podcast under 6 hours, I was very happy. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Buckle up, everybody.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. The thing interesting about when people ask questions is it's great when you get a great question, because now they're honor bound to listen to, and in my case, the entire and complete answer. Exactly.
Hey, I'm in it for the long haul. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Sounds great. Well, actually, my upbringing in Chicago, I was born and raised in the Chicago area, a suburb of Chicago, in an area called the Oak Brook. My father was a milkman. So back in those days, milk came in glass containers, glass gallons, And there was a box outside everyone's home that was the milkman box. And you know what was amazing, Jill, about that time period? I'm 65 years old today, so I was 4 or 5 years old back then. There was money in the box all the time, and no one ever touched it. We never had one single time where the milkman money was missing. I mean, different times, but because so there was always a note there and some money for the milkman. And my father was a milkman. He had his own little one-man operation route for a dairy called Twin Oaks Dairy, and that was my first sort of, I guess, feel for the importance of being able to get up and go to work when you have no one even there telling you to get up and go to work. My father, he had to be a self-starter, and I think that's probably one of the things I got from him the most at an early age was, if you want to do it, you need to get out there and do it yourself. Don't wait for someone else or a time clock to tell you what you have to do and when you have to be there. So that was sort of a lesson I learned. He said, well, we get our route done earlier and we get off earlier. So at 5 years old, I helped my father deliver milk, and pretty much average, humble upbringing, son of a milkman, literally. At 16 years old, I took my first big step towards success, and I became a janitor. I think, janitor, what the heck is that? Well, I have to say I had two incredible experiences while being a janitor. At 16 years old, I was able to be bonded, which means insured. So if my buffer went crazy in an expensive place and hit some piece of equipment, the insurance company would cover it, right? So because of that, I was able to be in a house, and I cleaned this lady's house every single Wednesday. Now, the lady's name was June Martino, and the name won't mean to you, listeners, unless you've seen the movie I'm about ready to reference. There's a movie out in the theaters. Now it's on streaming and probably will be for a long time. It's actually a very good movie. It's about the McDonald's story, and it's called The Founder. And Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc. And it's about McDonald's and the whole and I sort of witnessed that whole experience in my life because I lived in Oak Brook area, which was where the world headquarters of McDonald's was.
Yeah.
Right? So, and so my whole life I witnessed this experience. If you haven't seen the movie, it really is a good watch. It's called The Founder.
Okay, got it.
And it's very, and it's very Hollywoodized for sure, very drama, but it is based on certain events, but it's got the Hollywood twist on it, But in the movie, Ray Kroc, played by Michael Keaton, and Ray really wasn't that way, it was just Hollywood twist, but Michael Keaton is constantly, as Ray Kroc, talking to a lady outside his office, and her name was June. And that's June Martino. That lady in the movie, who you'll see over and over again, that's the lady whose house I cleaned. And so when I met her, I was 16 years old. McDonald's had already been around for some time. And she was already worth more zeros that I could count on my fingers and toes, and an icon in the area. Everyone knew who June Martino was, and here I am every single Wednesday cleaning her house, right? And she had his $1 million house in a place called Ginger Creek, suburb of Oak Brook, right? Literally adjoined Oak Brook for all intents and purposes, and a very, very nice, elite kind of area. And she had maid and butler, and then I was in there I would do like the swimming pool and the buff the floors and the garage, that kind of thing. So, and the one thing that astonished me, that was an interesting scenario, was up to that point in my life, Jill, I have thought to be successful, you had to be a jerk. You had to be the kind of person that's me too oriented, or me only oriented. I mean, me first oriented. It's just business, all that kind of thought reference. And I thought that for some reason in my mind, I had just sort of thought that when you were really successful, that's how you got there, was you had to push other people down. And it was really astonishing to me at this ripe old age of 16 years old to see this woman who was exactly the opposite. She was never condescending to anyone, very nice, very approachable. Like I said, I was in there every Wednesday, and she would say hi to me, even if I was looking down, looking at the floor buffing. She would say hi to me, even if I hadn't seen her first. Very approachable and very nice, and that struck me. And here I am, cleaning out her garage. in a car that was worth 10 lifetimes of my income, you know, and I'd I'm sitting in a Rolls Royce, and here I am, 16 years old. I'm driving a Rolls Canardly, which, you know, and a Rolls Canardly basically is a car that can hardly make it next. That's what I had, you know. So that was my Rolls Canardly, and so here, this is June Martino. This woman's this amazing, super successful, and I thought, man, she's happy and she's successful, and excuse me. I get choked up even thinking about it. So so here I am thinking about this, how extraordinary this is. So one day I could tell she was in an extra good mood. So I went up to her and I mustered up all the strength that a snot-nosed 16-year-old could and courage, because I'm going to go ask June Martino a question. And I said, hi, June. She said, hi. I mean, just, you know, very approachable. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. You know, and I said, well, could you tell me about it? And she said, well, what's that? And I said, well, the whole McDonald's thing. I'm not kidding, Jill. She put her arm around me, brought me in the kitchen. I'd asked her in the morning. The entire day had me in the kitchen telling me the entire story of from the very beginning to the end, and how she worked for Ray Kroc before he even met the McDonald's brothers. He was a milkshake mixer salesman, and she worked for him then and was his secretary, and then the meeting of the brothers, and all the way through, all the way up to the very moment we're sitting in her kitchen. She even has amazing butlers bringing us food in the kitchen so she can keep telling me the story. And I think, and I'm looking around, I'm thinking, is there someone else in the room here or something? I'm astonished that, you know, this ultra successful woman is just taking the time out of her schedule and just telling me all this stuff. And so at one point, by the way, when you see the movie, and it is worth seeing at least once, there's a time in the movie when you see this part, think of me. There's a time in the movie where June Martino goes and asks Michael Keaton, Ray Kroc, and says, we need to do something. We're out of money. We don't have any money left whatsoever. And that prompts Michael Keaton to call the McDonald's brothers. They have an argument on the phone because Ray Kroc says, I need greater percentage because, you know, I'm opening these franchises and I'm losing money. I'm not even making any money. Anyway, that event she told me about decades way before the movie was ever out.
Wow.
And that actually did happen. But when she told me that, she said there was no money. Ray could not afford to pay me anything. There was no money to pay me. So we agreed he wouldn't pay me. And instead, he gave me worth less than zero, worthless company stock, and agreed to take all the calls from my bill collectors so they wouldn't hound me on the phone. And,
wow.
And so I looked at her and I just asked her, I said, June, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm a janitor. I work Friday to Friday, pay. If I don't get my check on Friday, I'm not showing on Saturday. I need that paycheck. You know, I live for that paycheck. Why did you do it? And right then I could tell. I had just asked her a question no one had ever asked her before. Everyone always wanted to know what happened with McDonald's, but no one ever asked her why. And she's staring at me with this blank look on her face, and I could tell as she's doing this eye lock on me that she just left mentally. She's genuinely wondering, you know, what's the answer to this question? Why did I do it? And
right.
The 10 seconds that went by seemed like an hour. Meanwhile, you know, I'm looking everywhere in the room. You know, just, you know, wonder what in the world is she thinking of, you know? And she's staring at me. And then she spoke, and when she spoke, I have to tell you, I remember so succinctly what she said and the way she said it, because it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck when she said it. When I said, June, why did you do it? She then spoke and said, because I believed in Ray. And I'll never forget my first thought, Jill. Instantly, my first thought was, that's it. That's my answer. See, I mean, I even hit a chord with the little one. See, I mean, I just, I immediately thought to myself, because that's the way I was mentally, like your little baby there. Just I felt the same way. I thought, that's what I need. I need a Ray Kroc. Someone that can put me under their wing, like Ray did with June. Teach her everything. Teach me everything, like he taught her. Because I don't even know what I need to know. I just know I don't know it.
Right.
You know, and whatever it is, I don't know what it is. And I thought, man, I need a Ray Kroc. That's what I need. And my first touch then was, people really could be successful. They really could be happy. They really could have extraordinary lives. And as I looked at her every time I was in there, she wasn't like, she didn't have any superpowers. She wasn't the spectacular alien that, you know, only she could do this. It wasn't that way at all. It was just the opposite. So I threw it out there, and I just threw out, where's my Ray Kroc? I need to find I didn't say mentor. I need to find someone who could teach me. Because I didn't even know what a mentor was, let alone spell the thing. You know, I spent my hooked on phonics money on something else, so, you know, I didn't know what a mentor was. And so there it was. I threw it out there. Where's my mentor? About 2 or 3 months later, at the same janitorial service, same event, or same place, I should say, I was there in the evening. I punched out already. You know, we had a time clock. You punched out at the end of the day. And I was talking with the boss, the owner. It was only him and I, because he was a friend of the family, so we were at the end of the day. And the phone rings. And he hangs up the phone after a few minutes and said, "Oh, some guy needs to see some carpeting. He's in from Detroit. He's opening a diamond store in Berkeley, another suburb of Chicago. And he needs to see some carpeting, and he's leaving, going back to Detroit tomorrow. He needs to see it tonight." I said, "Okay, what's that got to do with me?" He said, and I said, "I'm not going. I've already punched out. And exhausted. You know, I'm not going to go show some carpeting." And he said, "No, I need you to go. You have to go. I'll give you the carpet samples, and then, you know, you show." I said, "Jerry, I'm not going. I don't know anything about carpeting. I just clean places. I don't know anything about giving bids out on carpet jobs or anything." And he said, "Well, I'll give you this wheel here, and you walk this way and this way on the room, and call me on the phone, and I'll give you the price." I said, "No, Jerry." He said, "All right, I'll tell you what. If you go, I'll give you your pick of any Saturday you want off." Now, for a janitor, that's a big negotiation chip, right? Because we clean when businesses are closed. So Saturday, we clean morning till night, right? So if I could have any Saturday off so I repeated back to him to make sure my ears didn't get tricked or something, right? I say, "Any Saturday I want off?" And he said, "Any Saturday." And I said, "Okay." So set the stage for your listeners. I don't want to go. I mean, I'm not doing this for my boss. I'm exhausted physically. I said no times. I don't know anything about carpeting. And who cares about this guy from Detroit? You know, everyone knows how, Detroit, you got to be kidding me. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, all these things. And so I don't want to go. I don't want to even be. I'm not doing this. I'm only doing this for one reason, Jill, and you know what that one reason is. My Saturday off. That's it. The only reason. Little do I know. I'm getting ready to meet the man who will change the trajectory of my life forever. My Ray Kroc. I'm getting ready to meet him. I don't even know that. And he will become the father I never had, even though I had a father. I will become the son he never had, even though he had a son. He will become my mentor and teach me so much and change the whole direction of my life and put together the burnt out wires in my mind as the son of a milkman, burnt out janitor. And here I go, getting ready to meet him. So I meet him, and I arrive, and there was an immediate comfort level. To your question you asked about 3 hours ago, how did I feel? I got to tell you, when I met him, it was like I knew him before. There was this, and I know he felt the same way. There was this incredible, inexplicable, besides that you couldn't even explain it, the explanation that, we knew each other already. I mean, I felt like I talked to this guy about anything. So we talked for a couple of hours. the carpet was a no sale because he needed something real plush for inside a jewelry store and a diamond store, and we just had commercial office stuff, right? So that was not stuff. So I talked for a couple of hours, and I get ready to leave, and he offers me a job.
Oh,
and I said, man, I don't know anything. I said, I don't know anything about diamonds. I'm saying no again. I said, I don't know anything about diamonds. I said, all I know is they're expensive, and someday a woman's going to ask me for one. That's all I know about diamonds. Right?
Just one?
yeah, right. And so here I am, and he goes, well, I'll teach you. And I said, no. I'm saying no again. I don't know how many times I said no to this event that's going to change my life. So and I didn't know at that point, Jill, that he was about ready to say something that was going to hook me. I didn't know at that moment that I was talking to a genius in the truest sense of the word. I mean, not IQ kinds of baloney, but I mean the kind of person who really, really deep down knows people, the kind of guy that can ask you 3 questions and like almost know your whole life story. And he had me pegged. He knew it. He knew what he was about ready to say was going to grind me. And so as I'm walking out the door, he said, what do you have to lose? You could always go back being a janitor. And I said, no, I'm all set. People will always make a mess, and I can always clean it up. So I said no again. And I leave. Now, it's almost midnight. It's almost midnight. I mean, it's late at night already, right? And so I'm driving, and it's grinding me. I'm thinking, man, he's right. I can always be a janitor. I mean, I get a job anywhere. I mean, So, and I get about halfway home, and finally it had really gotten to me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to see what he has in mind. So I turn around. I thought, he's probably gone already. It's almost midnight. He had to leave back to Detroit. I get back to this new office that, is getting ready to get renovated, and he's still there. I said, okay, what do you have in mind? Next thing you know, I'm working for him. And then over the next time period, now he's in Detroit. I'm in Chicago. I get in the car at 4 a.m, Friday night, Saturday morning, drive 301 miles. I remember the exact mileage. 301 miles from Chicago to Detroit. Had a 6-hour meeting with him, got back in the car, and drove all the way home. All in the same day. I did that every single weekend for 4 months in a row and never missed a weekend.
No, yeah.
And because I wanted what he knew.
Yeah.
I just knew I needed it. I wanted it. And he was like my lifeline to success because I didn't know anyone else. And I could tell he was, rich and happy, not knowing at that point, Jill, I had that backwards. You're supposed to be happy and then rich. And, but, at 16 years old, I'm all about the money, right? I mean, so, I make the money. So here I am. I must have a frog in my throat or something, so I'm clearing my throat. I apologize for that.
No
worries. So here I am, and I worked for him for a couple of years. And then at the age of 19, I asked him the question. And I said, Sam, could you teach me everything I need to know? No matter what it is, don't hold back. Please teach me it all. And he said, okay, I will teach you it all. He said, but I want one thing from you. I want to let you know the next thing he was about ready to say, no matter what it was, I was in yes mode.
Yeah, good. By now, finally.
Yeah. Whatever it is, I'm saying yes to it, right?
Yeah.
So this is what he said. He said, I only want one thing from you. When the time is right, and you will know that time, I want you to teach as many people as possible everything that I taught you. So at the ripe old age, Jill, of 19 years old, I made a vow. I made an oath. I made a commitment to my mentor to fulfill a promise, which today I'm doing and has manifested itself as GIVERS University. So I finally gotten around to answering your question that I think you asked me yesterday. And that was not only how I felt about my mentor, but how that's sort of manifesting in my life and what I'm doing about it even today, that promise I made when I was 19 years old, that as a way, and I believe my mentor is just looking on over my shoulder, even helping me even today because I am fulfilling that oath and that commitment and that vow with him. So there you have it. That was the story of how I met my mentor. And I share with your listeners two things. Number one, be careful of that moment in time that's so small and tiny and seems so insignificant on the edge of a dime that seems like it's nothing at that moment, that will ultimately be a decision that will change the course of your life forever because of the subsequent events linked to that one little decision. And in my instance, it was all those no's, and I finally said yes. And to my business mentor and going forward, and the impact he had on my life that there's no way of putting into words, even though I will commit the rest of my life doing just that to share it with other people.
Yeah, it sounds like he had a special kind of intuition, especially about people. And it sounds like when you started to listen to your intuition is when you were able to recognize when that moment came. Would you agree?
Yes, I heartily agree. And he had intuition, out-tuition. He had all the tuition, sideways tuition.
Yeah, all the tuition.
Yeah, he had all the tuitions there was. And I think that's an important mindset, really, with our listeners, because sometimes people are afraid to just humble themselves and say, I don't know. Because it's too important for everyone, I got to know the answer, I got to know. And there's nothing wrong with saying, that's really interesting. I'd like, teach me about that, And those are powerful phrases. And so many people are afraid, I don't want to have that. I look like an idiot. People make fun of me because I don't know. Believe me, you're so much better off humbling, and as I did, and just recognizing I didn't even know what to ask. I didn't even know what I didn't know, but I just recognized it, that I didn't know whatever it was, and that someone else needed to teach it to me. And so I share with your listeners, get a mentor. If you don't have one, listen to Jill Miller's podcast. Listen to her guests, because it's a form of mentoring, bringing guests to you so you can learn from their experiences, their challenges and their temporary defeats and how they overcame those as well. So, I was very blessed with being able to meet him at an early age. And that was set the stage because of knowing June Martino and meeting her and knowing that, I guess that was a part, Jill, that made me comfortable with the whole concept, because I was so impressed with the fact that she was just this wonderful lady, that was so mega rich with zeros. And I thought, oh, she's just like regular. So she must
normal.
There's nothing different. Yeah. Yeah, she just must know something different than I do, or that's what else could there be, right? And I got to find out what that is, and meet that same kind of person. That just connected in my mind. So with your listeners, find a mentor and listen to them. Be discerning as to who they are. Don't listen to the wrong people, because there's a lot of wrong people. And I can share with you, Jill, in my life, I've met a lot of really educated idiots.
Oh yeah.
And
seems like they always sit at the top too.
Oh yeah, they have all the book knowledge and all the information, and do not know how to apply any of it. And part of wisdom is knowing what to do and knowing when to do it. And so I've met a lot of educated idiots in my life, and I share with you, I'd take a wise person that knows how to implement something a small fraction of the time, much more than someone who has all kinds of book knowledge that can't find their way out of a paper bag. And I've met a lot of those people, and I just say, you got to be kidding me, and I just exit.
Yeah. Yep. So let me ask you a couple questions. Do June and Sam know how influential they were? Did you ever get a chance to tell them, and show them? Do they know what their role was in your life?
Well, June never really did. June, God bless her, she's passed away, and I was really a janitor, so I still was I felt, the extra humble part. And you know what was funny, by the way? She wanted the van that had a janitorial service name. She wanted that in front of her house. It had to be there 8 hours on Wednesday. So my job, I had to keep busy. I cleaned the swimming pool like 3 times, and I'd keep because she had maids and butlers that were there, but I'd clean the garage over and over again. But that I loved, because I had to pull out the Rolls Royce each time. So I'd look for ways. I must have missed something. I got to pull the car out again. And so I had to look for ways to keep busy. So she really, I don't think, ever really knew the impact she had. And also, she taught me about the trials that Ray had, and the things he did. And by the way, again, last point on the movie, when you see the movie, listen closely to what Ray Kroc, Michael Keaton, says at the very end of the movie, because it is really a great sum up of how McDonald's even came about. And at the very end of the movie, what he says, in his explanation, if you will, is he's preparing to give a speech. And it's a great, and for me, it was just a great movie because I had heard from June, so I was constantly comparing, well, that didn't happen. That's Hollywood baloney, but that did, and that happened, that kind of thing. So I don't know if she ever really knew the impact. But I also felt that it didn't matter to her because she was just happy to share with someone who I think she knew I genuinely wanted to know. I was just not being someone that wanted to get close to June Martino because she's rich. I think she genuinely knew. I think she genuinely knew I really wanted to know, and she felt that. And I think that impacted her in a way. And then Sam, he knew. He knew the impact. I loved him. He knew I loved him as a father, and I still miss him today. He passed away in 1991. He was the one that had diabetes, by the way. It wasn't me. He was the one that had. He was. You mentioned the bio, and I want to mention that even that as him was something that was an extraordinary thing that it ultimately took a toll on his life, but which is why I went in one of the directions in my life because of his experience and the private grant that he formed, but. He did know the impact that he had on my life. And my kids even called him Uncle Sam, he was like, they just loved him. And then he would always joke because when we'd go over to his house and my kids would run over and jump up on him and hug him. And he would say, I wish my grandkids would treat me the way your kids do, and I'm not to mention his grandkids. I'm just saying my kids loved him that much, So, So it was that kind of a relationship. So he knew, and everyone knew that he could start a sentence and I could finish it, and we really were that close. So, So and it's such a blessing, Jill. I consider no matter I had so many temporary defeats and so many times where I was making so much money and $1 million in a year and just extraordinary sums of money that at such an early age that as money flows in and flows out of our life, a lot of times just as quick as it came in, But the blessings of having him in my life, and then when I was on the radio, being able to interview in 2 years over 1,000 millionaires, extraordinary. Just to be able to ask them questions off the air, if you will, that were a part of my education, and I added that to the things we teach in GIVERS University. I added it to what Sam had taught me. But look for the commonalities. Here's these 1,000 people who were all millionaires that I interviewed literally over 2 years while I was I had my own radio show, and it was an extraordinary experience. And to meet all these people who, and I'll share just sort of a side note, sharing with your listeners. It was interesting that all of them had some very interesting commonalities in their stories, and one of them was all of them. Not some of them. All of them had a time in their life where everything told them, do not take the next step, stop and give up. You are defeated. All of them had that time. And what's even more interesting is that some of them told me what happened next. And unrelated, they didn't even know each other, these people, because this is over a broad swath of people. And some of them even used the same words. It was actually sort of humorous. Some of them even said, do you know, I took the next step just to see what else could go wrong. In other words, they said, I thought I'd hit everything. I was just curious, did I miss anything? Is there anything else that could go wrong in my life? And they said, I took the next step just out of curiosity, just to see, is there anything else that could go wrong? And they all use that same kind, many of them, I should say, even use the same words. It was sort of weird how they all said, and then the next thing, which was a lesson for me, and I share with your listeners, was that when they took that next step, when it seemed like everything was so dark, and there was no reason to do it, just doing it for the sake of doing the next step, for no other reason, that everything seemed to click. And they said it was interesting how it's like all of a sudden it was so dark, and then all of a sudden the clouds seemed to were gone. And almost effortlessly, things started to happen that were spectacular and good, and things started to connect. And they said it was almost like failure, and I was calling it temporary failure back, as I was learning not to no longer use that word. But it was like they said, the failure part of my life, or the defeats of my life, had somehow decided to exit and go influence someone else, and were now not a part of my life anymore. And they said it was extraordinary. And I share with your listeners that, don't give up, because there's going to be those times and those unforeseen circumstances. And many times cliches are cliches, not always, but many times they're cliches because they're true. Not always. Some of them are, ridiculous, but some of them are true. One of them is, it truly is darkest before the dawn. And, when it is very, very dark like that, that's the time where, you need the courage. That's the time when you need the strength, and where you need to rise up just one more time. And then all of a sudden it clicks. And those are extraordinary lessons for me, as I was able to ask these people great questions off the and they influenced me in a huge way.
Oh, man, I have so much I want to ask you now. Is there any question that you ever asked where the answer stood out the most? Like, can you think of any story or scenario where you just were baffled or shocked or surprised by the answer? Because maybe it was different than any other millionaire had said, or, maybe, I don't know, you were asking it to get a particular answer and didn't get that answer.
Well, I can share one with you. I don't know why it just popped in my head, but it's actually a humorous one. It's the ultimate answer. For the first year of the radio show, the show was live, right? And then, which is a little bit of a challenge. And then the second year, we put it in the can, so to speak, and we added our commercials, and then we gave it to, and it was broadcast out literally over half of the United States. But this was a true story, and you want to talk about getting the answer right on the spot. So I was talking with a gentleman. It was a millionaire in importing and exporting. And all of this he did was with Mexico. And this is back in 1991. So, this is decades ago, right? So, and all we were talking about Mexico and, importing from the United States to Mexico and back and forth, that kind of thing. And he'd gotten very, very rich doing that. And I said, we've always, oh, it was so funny. I said, we've always heard in Mexico that people like to take off, during the day, and, the workers do, and they have a siesta. As I'm saying it, Jill, the guy fell asleep right in front of me. And I couldn't believe, I just couldn't. I'm looking at him nod off. And I thought, and I never had an interview. I mean, usually, I can get going on the interview or something. I thought, man, this guy. And so as I'm asking about siesta, he's literally falling asleep in front of me. Yeah, he's taking one right in front of me, and I started laughing. My sound guy, he was right on the money, and he did like some kind of Mexican, Hispanic kind of jingle kind of thing. That was that kind of thing. And I laughed, and I was laughing so hard, and my sound guy was laughing so hard that we woke him up. And I said, well, I guess you've answered my question about, if you still take siestas. And he said, oh, I can't, I don't even, he said, I flew in and I'm so tired of you. And he was so apologetic. And I said, don't worry about it. You just gave me the best sound clip that I'll have. I even have that today. I mean, I have it somewhere on some tape, and it was just so, that was truly a response to a quick answer to a question and a response I did not see coming.
Well, I'm glad
right in front of you. Takes a siesta right in front.
That's awesome.
Yep. Fun stuff.
So what do you say to naysayers that might say, like, well, it really just sounds like you were in the right place at the right time, or you got lucky, or it's all about who you know?
Yeah, I would say that they don't know what they're talking about. That is excuses that are usually contrived by someone who's not doing what needs to be done. And so I would say that person is, number one, mislabeling, misframing what really took place. And they're just doing a very feeble justification for them not doing what is necessary, because and that can sort of set the stage, if you will, in our conversation, as we can sort of go segue on some of the things that we teach at Givers University, which is germane to that thought. And that is that, first of all, number one, that person who said that or would ask that question has, they're demonstrating one of the D's that a taker demonstrates. So, I'd like to sort of begin an explanation on what we teach at Givers University and what we teach that genuinely is not being taught anywhere else. And I mean that because I do 1 to 3 interviews a day, and I can tell by the response of the host, literally no one is teaching this. And this is what we teach. First of all, I say to your listeners, we love everybody. We love everybody. I say that emphatically. And we teach people how to discern or how to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we do not love. And we teach people how to discern, and by watching the deeds of others, by observing, not not broad, innocuous references that someone hears and they say, "Oh, that sounds really good. Now what do I do with that?" We sifted it down, Jill, to the actual deeds. Look at them doing these things, these specific things. Here's the list. Here's the checklist. Look at them, watch and observe. And when you see them doing these certain things, you may want to discern and bring them closer into your life and have them a part of what we call your Givers community that you want to build around you, because givers bring with them the 3 W's of a giver, namely wisdom, wealth, and wellness. By contrast, if you see them doing certain other deeds, you may begin to discern and think, you know what? I should start respectfully, not nasty or rude or insensitive. I should start respectfully distancing myself from them, because takers bring with them the 3 D's of a taker, which is defeatism, disruption, and destruction. By the way, the first D is the one that would be a part of the person who made the statement you and I were referencing, defeatism. You got to be in the right place. All the reasons why it didn't happen, and that's just baloney. It's just not true. And and what happens with it, and first of all, when we use the word giver, we're not labeling a person. We don't label people. We label the deeds of people. So when we say giver, we're actually referencing giver deeds. When we say taker, we're referencing taker deeds. And so and one of the things we want to give your listeners is genuine, free checklist that they can download and use and to help them discern who they should not and should not have in their life. I asked 3 questions real quick or 3 references to your listeners. Think about the fires that you stomp out every day. Think about the times when your stress level spikes every day. Think about the times where you have conversations with people. At the end of the conversation, you barely remember what you talked about, but you do know one thing for sure. You have no energy left. They just drained it all from you, right? All those 3 things, Jill, all 3 of those things have one thing in common. There's a name attached to them. And no one's teaching us how to discern who we should and should not have in our life. A number of interviews back, a gentleman was interviewing me, and he said, this is really good stuff. And I just read a book, and it said we have to have 5 really good people around us. And I said, you're right. We need to have 5 good people around us. Question for you. Which 5?
Which 5?
And all of a sudden, and we were doing a video conference, and I could see this blank look on his face. I said, do you see my point? No one's teaching us how to learn how to discern which 5. They're just saying, get 5. And what happens is when we have the wrong people around us, they make us unwitting collateral damage, and now we're putting out fires not of our making. And now our productivity goes down because we're stomping out fires instead of producing the results we want in our life. Our stress level goes up every time we talk with them. And we want to have a low stress level, not a high one. We want to have energy givers and people that help charge us up and we can charge them up, not people that every time you talk to them, they just basically suck the energy right out of your life. So we need to discern. So today, businesses open and closing faster than ever before. Products being antiquated overnight by other new products. What do we have left? Relationships. And no one's teaching us how to discern who we should and shouldn't have in our life. I'm a self-improvement person. Jill, I'm positive you are. I'm sure many of your listeners are. But no one's teaching other than us. What about the other guy? What if he's not doing it right? What should we do about that? And that's what we teach, how to discern who we should and shouldn't have in our life so that we can have exceptional happiness, freedom, and greatness in each one of our lives. So we teach that through our courses. We have online courses, at the Givers University, and it's all based basically on a series of books that's called Give to Be Great. First one's called The Giver's Mindset. That's the first course, How Givers Think Differently Than Takers. Second course is called The Giver's Lifestyle. Givers live differently than takers do. We've even identified the 30 habits of givers. There's 30 habits you can watch givers do over and over and over again to help you discern that that's a giver and not a taker. By contrast, there's 30 habits that takers do as well. And then the third course is called Giver's Lifelong Learning. And Giver's Lifelong Learning identifies the 6 prisons that people walk around in, 6 virtual prisons that people live in, and they don't even realize they're in these prisons until they see the list, and then it's clarified for them. So, and that's all called, those 3 courses together is called Give to Be Great, and that's really the cornerstone of everything that is taught at Givers University, and really is the summation of those things my business mentor, Sam Robbins, that taught me, along with, my interview with the 1,000 millionaires. It was really 40 years in the making, to manifest all that information and bring it to the public even at this point. So it's quite a blessing to be able to do that. And we have free items, freebies, genuine free that we want to give to your listeners because, our name's Givers University. That's what we do. So, but we do want to give them. That's exactly right. We want to give them some free checklists that they can download and use, usable, genuine checklists that they can use that's going to help them in their life making decisions on what they should and who they should and should not have in their life. And so the right people are out there. To that reference that what about the person that says, you said earlier. Yeah. Those people are out there. And as a point to that, one of the things my mentor taught me was, don't look for the answers. You'll waste your time. All the answers are there already. They're always there. They will be there. They've been there all along. You don't have to look for them. They're there. He said, focus on asking the right question. He said, people look for the answers, and that's the wrong approach. He said, think of the right question. He said, because our lives become self-fulfilling prophecy. We start to automatically go in the direction, and our lives begin to answer those things that we begin to set ourselves up for. So inadvertently, Jill, as a snot-nosed 16-year-old, I asked the right question. I stumbled on it. I didn't mean to. I didn't, when I said, where's my business mentor? Where I said, where's my Ray Kroc? Where is he? When I didn't know, I was actually inadvertently asking the right question. I didn't say, how come I'm never going to meet my Ray Kroc? Because if I would have asked that question, my life would have begun to give me that answer by not having my Ray Kroc in front of me. It's like the same person says, why do I always meet the wrong people? Well, you're right. You're always going to meet the wrong people, and they're going to keep showing up as long as you keep asking for it. So I watch people over and over again and scratch my head, Jill, to watch how people they ask for what they do not want, and then they're surprised when they get it.
Yeah.
And all we got to do is focus on the right questions, and our life becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So to get the freebies that we want to share them with your listeners. They just go to giversuniversity.com. It's plural, giversuniversity.com. On every page, you'll see a place where you sign up for our free newsletter. As soon as they do that, they put in their email address. It's free. There's no cost. They're going to get a confirmation email, so they need to click on that because we don't spam. And then they'll be able to download right away. They'll get a download that's called the 6 arrows that takers shoot at givers. And we want them to download it. A couple days later, they're going to get a checklist, a 2-page checklist of the 25 do's. We call them the 25 do's that givers do and that takers do. And we want them to download it, print it off, put it in their pocket. It's usable, a tangible tool in their life toolbox, if you will, that'll help them discern going forward. And we want them to be able to enjoy these great tools that we have at Givers University. And from that, they find out who we are and our relationship, and we're nurturers. So we want to nurture those relationships, and we enjoy others and helping them have exceptional lives.
That's great, and I'll definitely put those the link to the website in the episode notes too, so that listeners can easily find it. Take me back just quickly to. I know you said that this was kind of a culmination over the years of all the interviews that you did and from your mentor, but was there a particular defining moment when you realized, the giver is who's successful, not the taker? I know you talked a little bit about how you always thought business people were jerks, and to get on top, you had to be the taker and not the giver. So you touched on it a little bit, but in terms of turning it into a book and turning it into a profitable business, what was that aha moment?
Well, I can share with you. I really would be hard pressed, Jill, to come up with an actual aha moment. My life's filled with ahas all the way through, and it's sort of like my experiences were sort of like, when you're a kid watching your finger grow. It doesn't. It's just. It's going to grow, and so my experiences were. There were many ahas, which were usually bruises. Mistakes I made, and I can share with you that, and we're pretty much out of time here, but I had 3 major temporary defeats in my life, and each one of those caused me to write a book so that my butt wasn't in that position again. And each one of those were major ahas, and and how I learned about givers and takers and the experience of those. So there were 3 major ones there, and they all had to do with 3 major temporary defeats. And each one of them is an hour story easily on its own, especially when I'm telling it. But I can share that it was always parallel of defeat. That the aha was always there. And this I can share with you for sure. As a part of that answer, one of the things my business mentor taught me was every adversity in life, not some, every adversity in life carries with it the seed of an equal or a greater benefit. And it's up to us when we have those moments of great adversity that we begin to get our head around that there's something great happening right there, and it's up to us to brush aside the leaves and see and find that seed. And when we do, we will actually be thankful for that adversity when we look back at it in retrospect. So I share with you there will be many aha moments in those that begin to get that mindset that every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And something that certainly I committed to doing years ago that my business mentor taught me that I'll share with your listeners. 3 things I say to myself every single day, and I have for, between 4 and 5 decades. And that is the 3 things my business mentor taught me I'll share with your listeners. And as closing statement, they were: I will never give up, I will keep rising up, and I will always overcome.
I will never give up, I will keep rising up, and I will always overcome.
Exactly.
Powerful, really powerful, and true. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all this with me. I have to have you on again because I want more. I have to go on the website, take the quiz, sign up for the newsletter, all this stuff. This is truly just kind of fascinating approach and, just a different twist, I think, that you've taken, because there's a lot of mindset coaches out there. There's a lot of business coaches out there, but what you've shared is really unique and different and comes from a very genuine place, I can tell. So thank you very much for your time today.
Welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you. And for your listeners, share this podcast. Help. One of the best ways to be a giver is to share this podcast. And if you have someone in your family that maybe is being a little takerish, this is a great way to broach the subject. Share Jill's podcast with them, because you never know. And all you have to do is say, I heard this really interesting podcast, and it really was thought-provoking. Do me a favor, listen to it. Give me your opinion on it. And you never know. It may open up their mind, and they may start becoming a little bit more giverish, and you may have one less fire to stomp out because you shared this podcast with someone who really genuinely needed it, because there's a self-assessment part built into all of this. And it can be a really valuable tool as people go forward in their lives. So thank you, Jill, for having me on your great podcast.
Thank you, EA. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thank you.